Welcome back, everyone, to OpenLine. Glad you're with us. We're talking education. We're talking charter schools, and there's just a lot to discuss when it comes to that in the legislature this year. And so we have with us Amy Frogge, former Metro Nashville School Board member. She is concerned about charter schools. She has been ever since her time on the school board, and kind of walking us through the concerns that you have with all this going on. And so my question is, all right, could it be that there are those associated with charter schools who really just want to improve things, and it's not about money? Or do you think it's really driven by money? You know, what about that? Because what about that question?
Yeah.
You know?
So the national charter school movement is profit driven. It didn't start that way. In fact, I'm friends with Sister Sandra, who started she's a nun who started the first charter school in Nashville, and she had the best intentions of just serving children with high needs. And I think even she is very concerned about the direction the movement has taken. At the national level, this is being funded by a few billionaires. The Walton family of Walmart, Eli Broad, who recently passed away, a real estate developer in Los Angeles, Bill Gates, Michelle Rhee has been involved in several organizations. Right now, her first organization, Students First, collapsed, and then it got merged into 50 Can, which is 10 Can. But they're just a plethora of these billionaire, millionaire funded organizations that are driving the movement, and that is about profit. Locally, I would say, you know, the teachers in the charter schools, I mean, I'm sure most, if not all of them, have very good intentions. They're really just trying to serve students like any other type of teacher. There are many families who choose charter schools, and some of them are really happy with their experience. And so none of this is about the actual people on the ground, but it is about the movement as a whole and the impact on local school districts.
And the billionaires, the Bill Gates and the Waltons that are really behind this, what do they have to gain? What are they trying to do? Well,
some of it, well, first of all, most of it is profit, I think, in various guises. I mean, education is the last government sector that is not privatized, and I've seen estimates that it may over $1 trillion nationwide. It's a huge amount of money, and so there are all these different ways, you know, aside from the land grabs like I'm talking about. But there are vendors, there are education vendors, a lot of ed tech, that, you know, they're trying to make money off technology. They sell databases. They are interested in gaining access to student data that they can use for profit. There are just all these different ways to make money. And that is really what's behind it.
When you look at the budgets, that's where a lot of the money's going. It's going to education.
Right.
And so you're saying follow the money. There are a lot of people that are very focused on trying to get access to that huge amount of money.
Yeah. And I think there's also sort of a philosophical bent for some of this, like, you know, the Koch brothers are behind a lot of it, and there's a libertarian bent of not having government, minimizing government, and, you know, with schools, but most of it is profit driven in my experience.
There were some specific scandals you felt like maybe identified some of the concerns that you have. What are some things that have happened that really raised some concerns for you?
So I will point people to, there is a website called the Network for Public Education that pulls together information like this, and it's really helpful because it has a lot of information on charter schools nationwide. Some of the information I got from articles posted there, but a lot of it's just my personal experience in Nashville. But these represent the lack of regulation for charter schools. So in Memphis Academy of Health Sciences, it was closed when 3 school leaders were indicted on charges of stealing nearly $400,000 for personal use. So they used their money for trips to Las Vegas, a hot tub, seafood, NBA tickets, auto repair, and other expenses. And so the charter school was, of course, shut down finally, and it displaced over 750 students. In Nashville, we had a school called New Vision Academy. and this complaint came through me that I directed up to the district. They were as a husband and wife team that were earning, the husband was running it and the wife was the second command. They were earning $563,000 a year for a school of 150 students. It was under state and federal investigation for financial irregularities, and there were complaints about failure to comply with federal laws regarding EL students and students with learning disabilities, and then they're also cramming too many kids into classrooms in violation of the fire code.
What happened with that?
We eventually shut it down.
Wow. But
sometimes they don't get shut down, and I'll tell you this little story. Knowledge Academies has been in the news here recently, and that's been the problems with the school have gone on for many years, but they ended up losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. They said they lost some of it in an online phishing scheme, and after the money went missing, the founder disappeared. Nobody knew where he went. There was speculation that he moved back to Jamaica. The school, we tried to shut it down when it was operating with a deficit, but the state forced it back open. So they appealed to the state, got forced back open even after all these scandals that were going on. I'm just touching on this one, but they used uncertified teachers. They were not paying teachers on time. They were accused of changing grades and transcripts. They were forcing poor children to buy expensive uniforms. They weren't serving EL, special needs. I mean, it just goes on and on. The state forced it back open, and they are now operating with a $7.9 million deficit. So it came back to the school board again, and we finally are shutting it down, but it'll take months to shut down. In the meantime, we don't know how they're spending their money. We have no control over the treatment of the students, and we have no control over the expenditures in the meantime. And then I'll give you one more and I'll stop. But there are a bunch. If anyone wants to look on that Network for Public Education website, one of the earliest ones in Nashville is a school called Nashville Global Academy, and it was just a disaster. The first day it delivered kids home after midnight on the buses. Then it failed to check the buses, and they forgot a child, so they left a child on a bus off-site, parked all day. So the district investigated it. They found poor communication, a non-workable transportation plan, and inadequate board oversight. Again, issues with special needs students, and they ultimately collapsed, but they misappropriated funds valuing $149,000. They stopped paying their bills, employee benefits. They did not pay $200,000, food services $35,000, gas charges $14,000.
So there's some bad things.
Huge debt, yeah, huge debt. And then what happens when a school like this shuts down, which was almost $500,000 in debt, guess who pays? Us. I mean, the district, they didn't want to leave the teachers hanging, so they're going to try to pay. So essentially the taxpayers pay twice for that. They funded the school in the front end. If the school runs out of money and runs off with money, then we have to pay a second time. So this just shows why there are no regulations. That the charter school advocates like to say, oh, well, we'll just shut them down if they're not working well. It takes years for that to unfold. We don't have any insight into what is actually happening day to day in operations or how they're spending their money. And then, by the time they close, a lot of times there's a lot of money missing, and then children are years behind in education.
Okay, interesting. All right, let's go to the phones here. Let's go to Elsie. Hello, Elsie.
Hey, y'all. I just thought I'd throw my 2 cents in worth here because I still haven't figured this out. About 2 days after the 2008 presidential election, a billionaire here in Tennessee, probably one of the largest billionaires in the country, popped up out of the bushes and said, we need to reform Tennessee education. All of a sudden, they started talking about charter schools, but they were internet schools. And then the next thing you know, the state legislature is being taken on a tour over in Turkey. This guy who made a fortune starting charter schools initially out in California, I think he might be a billionaire. Maybe he's just a millionaire. But he made all of his money off of turning public schools into charter schools. And the funny thing is about this guy, he's an imam. I have no problem with him being a Muslim or anything like that. He is a legal citizen, resident of this country, no problem there. But there was a plan by Mike Flynn in the Trump administration to put a bag on his head and deliver him to the president of Turkey. And I'm like, why? Is this competition in the for what? His charter school involvement? What is this? I can't think of his name right now. But he paid for a trip for several legislatures here to go to Turkey and tour his schools.
Okay.
So that just shows you how kind of weird this is. And you just said one guy, I think from Jamaica or somewhere, disappeared and they hadn't heard from him again. So this is about money. And let's get real, they don't care. They just need some sort of fake data, you know, to show up and twist the data to where it looks like it'll fit their case. Thank you for listening. Good day.
Thank
that's
you.
Elsie. She seems to agree with you.
Yeah, and I know what she's talking. I don't know all the some of the details I didn't recognize, but I think she's talking about the Gulen schools, which I don't know if they still are, but that was the largest charter network in the world, and they have hundreds of schools. They are run by a reclusive Turkish cleric who no one really sees. There's actually, I think, a 60 Minutes piece on this, and there are a lot of questions about where the money's going there, but also they were using these schools to get green cards for people. So they were bringing people into the United States and using them as employees and then giving them green cards. Wow. So it was a vehicle to get green cards. So that's actually a pretty famous case, but it's Gulen if anyone wants to look that up.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. All right. We're going to take a break. Then we're going to come back and talk about solutions. What are some things you think would work?
Okay.
And so we'll take a break, come back, talk about that when we return.